Something that we usually do at every meeting is that the 912 is a nonpartisan group, and especially for our friend back there who probably hasn't attended before he's recording this, is we've invited all candidates to speak at our groups. I personally hand-carried a letter and wrote it in Gene Shaheen's office in D.C. We've done it at Carol Shea's as well, and invited them to come speak to our group because they, at this present time, they are still our elected officials, and we're still their constituency. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that they have been invited. They just refused to come. I'd like to right now is invite our gubernatorial hopeful, Mr. John Stevens, to speak.
Jerry, thank you, and thank you for being here. I'm honored to speak before you today as the Republican nominee for governor. And I'm going to talk to you real briefly about what I believe strongly in, and those are New Hampshire values. And they're not about any party. So I stand before you because I love this great state of New Hampshire, and I want to represent New Hampshire, all people, Republican, Democrat, and Independent. But I want to also first say thank you to my friend and also running in the primary, tough opponent, Jack Kimball, who's been there with me from the very beginning after this race. And I want to thank you, Jack, for all your support. And so, there's a couple, Dan mentioned a couple provisions in the Constitution. I just wanted to talk about two words that mean so much to me and are part of my deep value and roots here in New Hampshire. And they are two words, they're economy and frugality. And our founding fathers in New Hampshire stood on this sacred land and came up with not just this document, but came up with ideas to form our government. And if you remember, New Hampshire, 6 months before the Declaration of Independence, declared independence from Great Britain. We were the first colony to declare our independence. That's how special this great state is. You know, if you look at Article 36, economy being a most essential virtue, economy. And then in Article 38, I just want to read one more time, a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and constant adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, frugality. Those two words, economy and frugality, mean something. That's why we hear in New Hampshire how fiscal conservative values are important values. They are the values that our founding fathers had. They are the values that make New Hampshire so special. And they're the values that I want to bring to this state and to work both with Democrats and Republicans. And those values, again, don't belong to a party. What they are about is limited government, less spending, more freedom and economic prosperity, and keeping communities safe. Those are the values. So whatever bill, whatever is mentioned, whatever is discussed, really has to adhere to those values to keep New Hampshire that special, unique state that we all know, love, and admire. My grandfather was a road agent in the town of Candia, volunteer fire chief, and I used to ride truck with him as a young boy. You know, his ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War on Bunker Hill. You know, and they moved to Mount Vernon from Beverly, Mass. My father came from another country, legally, his ancestors, legally. And they began working in the railroads in Pennsylvania, made their way to New Hampshire, opened up a restaurant, and started in the restaurant business. When I grew up as a young boy, peeling potatoes, washing dishes, making ends meet with Dad and Mom, we did it because we believe in personal responsibility, hard work, in the New Hampshire way, giving back to our community. And when I went to the University of New Hampshire and graduated, you know, it wasn't about just going to UNH and having Mom and Dad give me some money to go to school. I had to work hard. I had to get through my education by working in the restaurant and another job. But we did it the right way, and I met a lot of great people along the way. When I went to law school, I wanted to come back to this great state so that I could work here as a county prosecutor. And I defended and worked for our folks, victims, and made sure that criminals were put away. And make sure that those that commit crimes, heinous crimes, even when I became Assistant Attorney General and prosecuted homicide cases. You know, I had a homicide case in Rochester where, I'll never forget, a woman decided one day to drive her vehicle on the other side of the road and killed a mom who was driving a bicycle with her husband on a nice day here in Rochester, and killed her. And I was here at the scene working with the Rochester police, and we worked very hard to make sure that this community was kept safe. And then when I became Commissioner of Health and Human Services, we had a $300 million deficit at the time. And Governor Benson said, I need you to work to make sure that you can control some of that out-of-control spending and make sure we still deliver effective services. And we did. And in 4 years, working hard, making sure we give value back to the taxpayers and adhere to those New Hampshire values, we returned $143 million to the taxpayers of this state. And that's something I'm proud of. So when we look at what's been happening in the last few years in New Hampshire, the last 2 years I've been working as a private consultant for a firm in Boston, helping other state governors cut spending. I helped the governor of Rhode Island find over $300 million in savings by revamping his health care plan. I helped the governor in Illinois, Democrat, find $2 billion in savings in their budget. And I helped the governor in South Carolina reform his Employment Security Commission and put them on a road to save $1.2 billion in giving tax breaks and tax cuts to the smallest businesses in South Carolina. You know, I see what's going on in New Hampshire at the same time. In the last 4 years, 84 taxes and fees passed into law by Governor Lynch. 84. You know, we don't have to name all of them, but I can give you some of them. The LLC small business income tax, Jack alluded to, during the deepest recession of our lifetime. The campground tax, the rooms and meals tax hike, 12% increase in rooms and meals tax, again, during the deepest recession of our lifetime. We all know you don't tax your way out of a recession, and people here are struggling. And whatever you hear from the governor, which the last few weeks when I've been debating him and listening to him on the stump, the rhetoric of John Lynch certainly doesn't match the actions of Governor Lynch. You know, the governor says the other day in Derry, and he also said on Close-Up, I didn't raise business taxes. Do you think that's true? No. I just named a few of them. Restaurants are businesses. Small businesses were hit hard during the deepest recession. And here's the reality. 9.3, and I see my good friend George Lovejoy, who was a great senator from this area, who was a fiscal conservative that served with my dad. You know, $9.3 billion budget passed 4 years ago. And Governor Lynch just signed into law 4 years later an $11.5 billion budget. If you do the math, you can be a 6th grade student and know that's 24% increase. Governor cannot walk away from his record. You need to be the Truth Squad and make sure everybody knows that's going into that voting booth on November 2nd. Spending in New Hampshire has increased 24% over 4 years. That is not representative of the New Hampshire people or a New Hampshire value. And when Governor Lynch talks about cutting spending, I want you to know, because you need to be the Truth Squad, what he talks about is taking $250 million off the general fund and putting it into another account. $90 million of the liquor fund, $90 million of school aid that was always in the operating account was borrowed, and a few other accounts. Those are the types of accounting principles that get companies like Enron in trouble. That's what's happening in New Hampshire. My plan is to cut taxes on businesses, but to first make sure we can balance our $800 million deficit that we're facing without new taxes. And I have pledged, and I pledge to you tonight, that I have a friend here, and I will use this pen to veto any new taxes. We're going to solve our budget deficit working together with Democrats, Republicans, and Independents the New Hampshire way. And we're going to solve it by bringing efficiency, by reducing spending, and by making sure we're more accountable to the people of this state and restoring those constitutional principles of economy and frugality to the great people of this state that deserve it. Not just you here tonight, but our children, our grandchildren, and our future generation. That's what this race is all about. So in conclusion, we are at a critical crossroad in this state. Dan mentioned it. This election is the most critical election of my lifetime. We are faced with two choices here. We're either going to go down the road of higher taxes, more regulation, higher government, less freedom, or we're going to go down the road that I want to take this state, less government, lower spending, more freedom, more economic prosperity, and that's where I want to take this state. And I ask you to join me on November 2nd, talk to your friends and neighbors, and we will win this election and preserve those great New Hampshire values.
Yeah.